Hey, this is Mrs. Reichelt, and this next video we're going to go through talks about active immunity. So we're still talking about the adaptive immune system, or basically the humoral or the cell-mediated immune systems. So let's go ahead and get started. So basically, active immunity will occur when a B cell encounters some sort of antigens and it will produce antibodies. So this can occur either in humoral or it can occur in cell mediated. So basically, I want you to know that humoral and cell mediated basically happen at the same time. It's just a matter of what they're attacking is different. Okay, so active immunity can be acquired, or it can occur naturally during bacterial and viral infections. It also can be artificially acquired. So what that means is that we have a couple of different types of immunity. Let's go over passive immunity first. So I guess if you're writing these down, your first type of immunity will be passive immunity. This occurs when antibodies are obtained from somebody else. So this can be conferred naturally from a mother to her fetus. So basically, maybe you've heard that if a breastfeeding mother is nursing her child and she gets sick, the baby won't get sick, or the baby will get the antibodies from the mother. That's true. Basically, you can acquire those naturally from your mother, but be aware that when that occurs, it only happens for as long as the mother is nursing. Once the mother is not nursing anymore, then that doesn't apply anymore. Okay, and it can also be conferred artificially from some sort of immune serum. Okay, that would be an artificial acquired. So immunological memory does not occur with these. That means that once the mother's not nursing, once you don't have that serum anymore, memory doesn't occur, meaning that your B cells aren't going to remember any of that. Okay, so the protection is provided by borrowed antibodies. Okay, so it's not a long-lasting, it's a short-term sort of thing. The other type of immunity, I guess we're still on passive immunity. Sorry about that. I'm getting ahead of myself. So you have the monoclonal antibodies. Basically, these are antibodies that are prepared for clinical testing or diagnostic services. They're produced from descendants of a single cell line. And examples of a monoclonal antibody are going to be things that you diagnose of a pregnancy, treatment after exposure to hepatitis and rabies. So these are sort of like those serums that we were talking about. If you're diagnosed with, or after you're exposed to hepatitis, they can give you an immune serum to help you fight off hepatitis. But if you are exposed to hepatitis, again, you're still going to have to get that. Same with rabies, and rabies is, a virus. So once you're exposed to rabies, then you can have that immune serum, but it's not, your B cells aren't going to remember that. Okay, so here are some different types of immunity. So I've only talked about the naturally, or I guess we've talked about artificially acquired. So basically, you can acquire immunity two different ways, naturally and artificially. So an example, I guess we talked about passive immunity, that's what we did. So a naturally acquired immunity would be if you get an infection. If you get a cold and you start coughing and your throat hurts, then you have contact with the pathogen and your body is actively producing B cells. Okay, it's actively producing those. So it's a form of a naturally acquired active immunity. An example of a naturally acquired passive immunity would be your mother passes antibodies from the mother to the fetus through the placenta or to the infant through milk. Okay, those are naturally acquired. Artificially acquired immunity will result in these two things. It can be artificially actively acquired, meaning that you get a vaccine. Your mother decides that she doesn't want you to be at risk for whooping cough, so she gives you a vaccine, which the vaccine has basically it has the pathogen in there, but it's not the form that can hurt you. So your body remembers that and it builds up antibodies in case you're ever exposed to that specific pathogen. Okay, so a vaccine is an artificial active immunity, And then we talked about this one, the artificially passively acquired would be some sort of injected immune serum. So this would be like if you were exposed to hepatitis or rabies or a snake bite or something like that. Okay, so your antibodies are soluble proteins that are secreted by B cells. They're carried in the blood plasma and they're capable of binding specifically to an antigen. Okay, so those are your antigens and they have a specific shape here. So basically, your antibody structure is formed of 4 amino acid chains that are linked by disulfide bonds. They have 2 identical amino acid chains and they're linked to form the heavy chain. So you can kind of see that here's what an antigen looks like. But when we draw the cartoon version, we typically draw it like kind of reminds me of a bubbly Y, kind of like that. That's how we draw it. If you prefer the cartoony kind of version, and then the specific antigen binding sites are also present. So the specific antigen binding sites are actually going to be kind of on the ends of these little Y's right here. And I think I have a picture. Oh, yep, I do. So here's how I always like the cartoon pictures because it makes more sense to me. So here's the antigen binding site. Kind of looks like a Y. Right here, this open spot is where the antigen is going to bind. So let's say this one was a circle. It would bind right here, and then it would attach to it, and then the antibody could destroy that antigen. Okay, so the disulfide bonds are right here, and then here are the heavy chains. I kind of think of them as being like thick chains, and then these are the shorter ones right here. So there's a couple of different antibody classes. So there's antibodies for each class have a slightly different role. Collectively, they make up MAG. I actually typically just remember MAG because it's IgM, then A, D, G, and E. So M is the can-fix complement. A is found in mucus. D is the activation of B cells, so I just remember B cells for D. G is the one that can cross the placental barrier. And then E is involved in allergies. Oh, and I guess that's all. So I hope you found that helpful.